Hey there, Jay here. Welcome back to this course. So in this entire video, we'll be touching on foundations and the fundamentals of SEO. So this section here is really important. If not, I think it's one of the most important things that you should be aware on because as much as all the implementations is important, as much as all the theories, strategies or tactics that you'll be learning in this course, I think this specific section here will really help you be more productive, and it will also help you prevent future ceilings when it comes to performance as well. So I hope you really like this section over here. So again, this entire course you'll be learning, it's all based off on my experiences of what worked, what didn't work for our clients. So all these are tested and all these are proven by myself. So first of all, you need to understand what is the nature of SEO. Now, I'm not going to go into what is SEO, how is SEO beneficial, because I think there's a lot of videos about the benefits of SEO. For this entire course, like I mentioned in the introduction, it will just be a course on more kind of step 2, where step 1 is more on the explanation of what SEO is. Step 2 is, we're starting from step 2. So first of all, the nature of SEO. One thing you have to know, it's the first thing you always have to do is you always have to be testing. So what do I mean? Whenever you are implementing certain stuff, you want to test. You don't just want to implement, set and forget. Okay? Because with algorithms, you're working with an engine here. You're working with algorithms. So you may not be 100% accurate all the time. I'm not 100% accurate all the time. So for example, if I'm implementing a page title, when I'm making changes to a page title, obviously I'll try to come up with the best page title that I think there could be, but this may not be what Google or users like. And that's why you always need to be testing to see if the things that you have implemented earlier on, do they make sense? And usually Google will be able to tell in a form of whether your search engine has went up or down. So the first nature of SEO is always have to be testing. If you are making changes to removing the URL backlash, if you are making changes to a URL, if you are making changes to the meta description, you always want to make sure that you are testing either your strategy or your tactic, but you always want to be testing, and it's not a set and forget thing that you do, right? So always be testing, which brings to the second one is you always need to be optimizing. So always be optimizing, meaning to say, again, search engine optimization, it's optimizing. And with optimization as a process, you always have to consistently find, is there something else that you can do better? Because just like how working out, so I always like to explain this to my clients, but if you are consistently working out on a monthly basis, you will see that you'll start to build muscles, right? But the moment you stop working out, you're going to obviously lose muscles. Now, if the person standing next to you, it's also not working out, then it's okay, because then you both will lose muscles. But if the person standing on the left or on the right of you is consistently working out, then if you are not working out, guess what? They are going to build more muscles than you, right? So in a sense that the person standing on your left and right, it's your competitors. So if you stop optimizing, if you just set it and forget it, if your competitors are spending more time to analyze and test and optimize, they're going to one up you, and eventually you're going to lose the ranking, even if you're ranking for it in the first place. So always be optimizing. And then last but not least, if you can, always learn about the trends, any updates with regards to Google's algorithm, whether they have made any sort of algorithm changes, whether if there's a core update coming up, what are they prioritizing on. And the reason why you want to do this is because Google focus on what users want, and usually the changes that they make, it's based off on them understanding what users are looking for. And this is again based off on user engagement matrix and other stuff like that, right? But generally when Google makes a change, they are thinking about users like you and I, for example. They are having our thoughts in mind, and they always want to prioritize us. So if you keep yourself updated with the latest updates, what Google is updating, what Google is focusing on, for example, Panda, for example, Mom update, you know, specific updates. What is Google focusing on? Like recently, Google has a Google, product review update, right? And this means to say they are paying attention to some other stuff within a Google product, within a product review article. You always want to make sure to catch all these updates, because what they are doing is they are telling you what users want, and you just have to play according to what users want, which is again what Google want, right? So this is the nature of SEO: always test, always optimize, and always learn about upcoming new trends from Google, especially with regards to their core update, because the core update will tell you what they are focusing on, and also at the same time they are telling you what to do for you to rank on Google. Okay, so this is the nature of SEO. Now, one more question I get a lot is, how long do you see SEO plays? I mean, how long do you see performance coming in after your implementation, right? How long does it take for SEO to work? So this depends on a lot of stuff, but usually if your website it's already 1 year old or 2 years old, usually when you optimize a site, you can see results faster than if it's just a 1 month old site. And the reason why is because, again, with the nature of SEO, Google prefers websites that are a lot more aged, which means to say they have been around for quite some time. They have a lot more authority in a sense. Okay, so one more thing that I want to touch on, I guess the next thing that I want to touch on is kind of the bad habits. So you will find yourself, if you are doing any sort of digital marketing or specifically like SEO, these are some of the habits that you find yourself doing time and time again. And if you can reduce this will help you in terms of your productivity, because early on, like I mentioned, SEO already takes time. So you don't want it to take more time. You want it to take as little time as much as possible. Okay, so firstly is one of the bad habits is you are consistently checking your rankings. Okay, meaning to say, every time when you optimize a page already, if you have a rank tracking tool, or if you go to Google Search Console and you want to track your rankings, you track it on a daily basis. Every single day you're logging in to track whether it has your ranking go up or down and things like that. So please don't do this, because it will waste a lot of time. Because generally how Google I guess notice your changes, they will take a while to notice your changes, because the spiders will have to go into your website to crawl your website and then understand it, index it, and then that's where your website either goes up or down. But it doesn't happen until Google goes in and crawl your website. There are some ways for you to ping Google to crawl your website faster via GSC or via Google Search Console, but you don't want to do that because it's a waste of time. With SEO, everything is about prioritization. You want to focus your time, either your time or your team's time, to implement the things that will move the needle, rather than checking rankings on a daily basis, because that doesn't move the needle. So that's one bad habit you want to avoid. Every single day going into your rank tracking software and track your ranking. Don't do that. Okay, you can track it on a weekly basis. You can even track it on a monthly basis. But on a month-to-month or on a daily basis, you should be worrying or focusing on creating or implementing stuff. Okay, so checking rankings, not the way to go. And also one more thing, which later on I'll touch about, which is keep implementing without checking. So keep getting digitally distracted. Now, if you are in the world of marketing, you will be on your laptop most of the time. I would say majority of the time. And when you are either researching for some stuff, if you are working in a way, because we live in a digital world right now, there's a lot of distraction for you to be distracted. If you have a Slack channel with your teammates, if you have a WhatsApp web open on your browser, if you have YouTube, open up, or anything like that, right? There could be a million things that could be distracting you. So keep yourself focused and try to create more friction within the work that you are doing. So for example, what I like to do is, if I go over to YouTube, okay, you can see that there isn't any recommendations here. Okay, and the reason why is because I have a eradicator, newsfeed eradicator, where I am eradicating all of my YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook news. So this way I don't get distracted. Okay, so you're gonna find yourself getting distracted all the time. So just make sure you're creating a lot of friction for you to stop being distracted, because some of the things that you are implementing takes a little bit of brain work. Like it's not a step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 do this, because within step 2 you could be thinking of some other stuff, because whatever that I'm talking to you within this course will just be for specific, like for example local business. But if you run an e-commerce business, then the way of the concept of implementing is still the same, but the specific like copy will be different. And that's why you want to be focused and don't keep getting digitally distracted. Okay, so off your Slack, set aside a timer like 2 hours, and then just within these 2 hours, just focus on what you want to do, what you need to do, whether that be an audit, whether that be an keyword research, but you just want to focus as much as you can before you jump on to other stuff, and then give yourself a break, right? So don't keep getting digitally distracted. The next thing is, don't keep learning. You keep learning, but you don't implement it. So a lot of theories, you'll learn about this new tactic that's out there in the market. You'll learn about this new software, this new cool software, which is again getting you digitally distracted. Also, one more thing I recommend is you get a tool like Freedom, for example. Okay, because with Freedom, it helps you block apps within your period of time frame when you're working. So every single day from 8 to 5, if that's the working hours you have, from 8 to 5, you block out Facebook, you block out YouTube. So even if you want to go to these websites, this freedom.to will block out all these distractions for you. So feel free to check it out. I use it on a daily basis. Okay, so yeah, like I was mentioning, you keep learning, but you don't implement it. So this is one important thing to keep note on, because in order for you to learn, you need to implement things, because that's how you learn. Because every single time when you implement stuff, you'll find that this specific little factor here is not the same as what people are teaching, because they don't encounter this specific error that you're facing. And that's why you need to then go in and figure out how to fix this specific thing that the videos like this don't occur. And because you learn how to overcome these small little things, that's why you will learn faster that way, right? So don't go looking for the best, the new hack, the new strategy, the new blah blah blah, right? So always make sure that once you learn something new, you always want to go in and try to implement it first, because that's how you learn. Okay, and the next one is, don't keep implementing without learning and checking. So one of the things that I see most common where clients will ask me, or even working with websites, where if you see, for example, if you see your website or your traffic, it's going up and then down, up and then down. And on days where your website traffic goes down, you immediately want to find out what's wrong, right? So don't do that. Do not jump straight into problem solving mode. Because the first thing that you need to do is you need to understand the nature of SEO. Because like I mentioned earlier, Google takes time to understand your changes, and sometimes when they are taking time to understand that change, it could be the chart could be going up and down. So let me see if I can show you. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, when you see your website losing traffic today, don't go in and immediately try to fix something, because usually what happens is Google will do this dance. Okay, they will do this dance. Okay, where your traffic goes down, go up, go down, go up, go down, go up, and this is on a daily basis. Okay, and what's happening is Google is basically trying to understand your content to figure out, should it push you up or should it push you down? And that's what I call the Google dance. So while it's dancing, you don't necessarily need to change anything. Okay, so this is the last point, which is don't implement things without learning and checking first. Now, if in a case, for example, if your website has been going like this, okay, assuming you're doing SEO correctly, it should look like this, where it's trending upwards. However, if you see on a specific day that it goes down like that, okay, yes, then this is based off of my experience. Something is wrong with your site. Something is majorly wrong, and that's when you have to go in and check it out. Because anything that is out of the abnormality, anything that is abnormal, you want to go in and check it as soon as possible. Okay, but other than that, if it's going down on a daily basis, right, when you are here, okay, do not panic. Do not go in and implement stuff. Okay, because there could be nothing wrong. But if you see, for example, if it goes trending downwards, then yes, you need to start looking at what there's something wrong here. Okay, but if it's just like that on a daily basis, don't worry about it. Focus again, prioritize your time or your team's time to focus on things that will move the needle. Be it researching, be it implementing stuff, be it coming up with content, right? So these are some of the bad habits. And then the next part for good habits, okay, you want to try to have a no-look month. So for example, you could have a no-look February, no-look week, where that entire week you don't just look at analytics. You don't focus on analytics. You don't look at your Google Analytics. You don't look at your Google Search Console. You don't look at your SEO software. You don't look at your rank tracking. You don't look, right? All you do is you come up with a strategy, you implement it, and then by the end of the week or for the month, then you go in and see the results. Because trust me, you'll be so much more productive, or your team will be so much more productive when you are having this this habit in place. Now, if you are doing somewhat of an A/B testing, then obviously you need to look at it on a daily basis, for example. But even with A/B testing, when you're testing out variables on a website, it's also chances are you'll be leaving it for a period of time before you go in and check the results. So similarly with search engine optimization, you don't have to go and look at it on a daily basis. You do not need to look at your analytics on a daily basis, because that will give you a lot of anxiety, and that you don't need that, right? So have a no-look month or have a no-look week, right? So the next one is you always want to ask questions before you implement stuff. So for example, if you see like a new tactic or a new strategy that comes up in place, or even something that you will learn within this course that I'll be showing you, you always want to, if there's something that comes into your mind that, hey, this doesn't make sense, or hey, is this the correct way of doing it? What you want to ask all these questions before you implement things, especially if you're unclear of it. Okay, and the reason why is because this will help you put you in a place where you're consistently learning about the process of search engine optimization, because you need to, like I mentioned, with search engine optimization, right, it's not just working with algorithm, and by that alone, it will take you, it's going to be fun to do with it, don't get me wrong, it's really fun, but it takes you, it's not just a implement and set and forget. You have to ask yourself what do you think it's beneficial for the users, and that's why you always have to ask all these questions first before you implement stuff. For example, if you see like all your competitors are doing A, B, C, and D, but you don't feel like, if you know your customers, you don't feel like this is the content that they should be producing, then you want to always ask yourself, is that the best? Is that the type of content I want to be producing? Because I don't think it will benefit my users, right? So you need to ask questions before you implement stuff, even before you, just good to ask questions along the way so that you clarify. Okay, so these are some good habits. So the next part will be approach of SEO. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Yeah. So with regards to approach of SEO, there's a lot of approach towards SEO, but there's generally three things that you will, if you are learning about SEO, this is what you will come across the most. Either black hat, or white hat, or gray hat. Okay, so black hat meaning to say it's a very you are doing tactics or strategies that are gaming Google's algorithm. Okay, things like building private blog network, things like other things like that, right? So black hat, it's basically doing somewhat of a, not somewhat, but the unethical way of doing things, the gaming the system way. So that's black hat. White hat will be exactly opposite of black hat, right? So obviously, so you are basically just following exactly what Google's saying. And then gray hat is kind of in the middle of two. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to ask you to think of it in a way that it's in a way that is natural. So what? Excuse me. So what do I mean? For what I do, so everybody's approach of SEO is different, and most of them work. Whether if it's black hat, white hat, gray hat, or whatever hat, right? Most of them work. Now it depends on what approach you want to take. So for me, my approach towards SEO is not SEO because SEO is just a means to an end. The end goal is to build a long-term sustainable brand, and SEO is just one of them. So because of that end goal I have, I don't necessarily look at things that I'm not willing to take that much of a risk to implement something that is very risky that can get me traffic but am punished for it. Okay, so that is my approach, and that's why I don't do any black hat stuff. Okay, so for any like PBNs, private blog networks, I avoid all of that because like I mentioned, it doesn't serve what I'm trying to achieve, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to build a long-term brand with search engine optimization. So I'm not just optimizing the website for optimizing sake. I'm building a long-term brand, and in order for me to build a long-term brand, I need to think of strategies that is able to get me traffic for the long term, and that's why I don't do black hat, right? But that is my experience, and that's the way of how I like to do it. So with smart hat, what I like to do is you have to think of it in a smart way. So as much as you can, I don't really worry so much about whether is this gray hat or whether is this white hat or black hat, because it's really it's a waste of time. It's good to know these terminologies so that you know what's out there, but you don't really have to focus on it. All you have to do is just to make sure that first of all, Google likes users. You're producing quality stuff for users, which is your end users, and if you are doing that, then Google already likes you, because Google's the reason why Google exists is because they want to give users what they are looking for as fast as they can, right? So as long as you are having that mindset of producing stuff for your users with your users in mind, you don't have to worry so much about that. And next up, you want to make sure that everything is natural, right? So for me, that's where smart hat comes into play. You need to be smart about it, because if, for example, if a certain strategy works well, but it belongs to a little bit of gray hat, it will be a waste if you don't go after this, because as long as you make it as natural as much as possible, which I'll be showing you how we do it, that gets sustainable long-term results. And this is all just based off on the results that I've gotten over the past 3 years, right? As long as you're natural, as long as you're smart about it, don't take risk. I think that's the approach towards how you should be doing things. Okay, at least that's how I do it. Okay, so don't waste time on like black hat, white hat, or I shouldn't be doing black hat stuff. I shouldn't be doing gray hat stuff. One important thing is just make sure that you are doing things. You are using SEO to build a long-term brand. You're not just doing SEO because you want to rank, right? Because that's the last thing that you want. You want to build a long-term brand, and SEO is just one of the means to an end. Okay. So next up will be the types of SEO. So there's a few types of SEO that you could be doing, and I could be leaving something else out here. But yeah, so another one will be lead generation. Okay, so the reason why I put this here is because depending on what types of SEO you have, what types of website you have, what kind of business you have, the kind of SEO you'll be doing in terms of the priority will be very different. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to explain to you specifically each individual part. So with regards to e-commerce, it's going to be very straightforward. If you own an e-commerce store, either on WordPress, WooCommerce, Shopify, if it's an e-commerce store where you're selling products, that's basically an e-commerce store. Then that is a type of SEO that you'll be doing, which is e-commerce SEO. Now with e-commerce SEO, usually most of the time, now everything will not be absolute, like it will not be 100% because there will always be some outlier, but most of the time, the problem, not the problem, but the focus and priority for e-commerce SEO will be technicality. So if you watch the introduction to this course, I laid out different pillars for the importance, the different pillars of SEO. So if you are having an e-commerce website, the main things that you should be prioritizing will be technicality as well as links. Now, obviously, if you have all the budget in the world, everything else you should be focusing on, right? But if you are looking at the things that is usually causing the most problem when it comes to an e-commerce site, technicality is the first one, and then followed by off-page SEO, which is link building. Okay, so this is for e-commerce. Now, for local businesses, this is your local. If you own a dental website, if you are a dentist, if you are a physiotherapist, if you own a physical location where you're offering somewhat of a service like a massage, like a pet shop, for example, right? So all these belong to the local business. So now, if you are a local business and you have a local website, then the type of SEO you'll be doing, it's local SEO. And a lot of this will, the priority you should be focused on are a few things. Number one will be your Google business profile, because that's where usually people tend to search for services that you offer. And then what they will do is they will see a map pack, which I will also be touching on in this course. So local SEO, you'll be focusing on Google Maps. Not Google Maps, Google Business Profile, your Google Business Profile. Technicality, you don't have to worry that much, but you'll need to focus on your on-page in a way, and as well as your content, right? So links are obviously important, but depending on local businesses, because usually for local businesses, unless you're competing on a national level, like for example, if you're competing for the whole of Singapore, then that's going to be what you're focusing on, because then your competitors will have a lot more links than you, and that's where you need to focus on. But usually for local businesses, Google Business Profile, your content, as well as your on-page, as long as they are there, you generally will be able to see somewhat of a traction here. Okay, for publishing websites, so if you come across sites like news sites, for example, right? If you come across like Straits Times or any kind of news sites in a way where they are just basically publishing content, these belong to a publishing type of search engine optimization. So what if you have a website like this where you're just basically publishing different kinds of content, then you belong to this category. So if you belong to this category, the main priority here will depend on how big your website is. So this is not just for the publishing website. Generally, the more pages your website have, the more chances you need to focus on technicality, simply because of how big your website is. Okay, generally that's the case. And depending on how competitive your space is, the more competitive your market is, the more you need to focus on off-page. Okay, so this is irregardless of what type of SEO that you'll be focusing on. That's just a general rule of thumb. Of course, obviously there'll be outlier, but generally the more pages your website have, the more you need to focus on technicality. The more competitive your space is, the more you need to focus on off-page. So for publishing, the main thing that you'll need to focus on will be your content as well as your on-page. Because the nature of your publishing business, you need to come up with a lot of different types of content. And that's why keyword research is going to be very important. And that's why publishing content will be very important. That's why it's important. Okay, this is for publishing. Now, for affiliate, so if you have a website that runs different affiliate program, that promotes products, right? Like you run a website that promotes softwares in Singapore, for example, right? So this will belong to an affiliate program where you're promoting Lazada, where you're promoting Q10, for example, right? So then you belong to affiliate SEO. For affiliate SEO, again, for off-page and technicality, this depends on how big your website is and also how competitive your competitors are, right? But generally, for affiliate, will be keyword will be on-page as well as content as well, because you need to find keywords that are important, that is able to bring in what we call bottom of the funnel keywords or money keywords that can bring you traffic, and also content, because you need to structure out the entire content to provide value. So keyword research and content is very important. Okay, last but not least will be lead generation. Now, lead generation usually it's for B2B businesses in Singapore. For example, like if I run an SEO agency, I'm running a lead generation business because I'm not selling e-commerce stuff. I am a local business, but the conversion that happens within my site, it's more of a generating leads where I'm asking people to either send an inquiry or getting on a call. So this is lead generation. Usually local business is able to generate leads as well, but this for lead generation, if you have a B2B business in Singapore, then that is where you are looking at the types of SEO will be lead generation SEO. So for lead generation SEO, what you'll be focusing on, again, like I mentioned, technicality and off-page will be depending on the few factors that I've mentioned. But for lead generation, you want to focus on keyword research as well as content. So you can see the kind of patterns that you will see here. So most of the time, you'll be focusing on keyword research and on-page and content, because keyword research falls under content. So yeah, it's been 30 minutes, so sorry if I mess things up a little bit. But yeah, these are the different types of SEO and what you should be focusing on first. So if I miss out any, I apologize, but these are the main common ones that we see. There will also be times where it's overlapping, right? Where if it's a local business that have an e-commerce site as well. But this is just for a basic standpoint of if you own a website that is falling to one of these categories, then this is the stuff that you probably will need to focus on first. Because like I mentioned, SEO is a very broad term. You want to be able to dive down on what is most important for your particular business. And that's why I believe this part is important, right? So the next part will be the prerequisite of a SEO campaign. So there are a few things that you need to keep in mind before even you start a SEO campaign. And this is all based off on my experience. First of all, you need to have a decent website set up first. Okay, so when I mean decent, I mean your website needs to not look like, it needs to look proper. It needs to look like a real website, because you don't want to spend so much time to learn all these, spend so much time to learn the strategies, the tactics, and then go in and implement, but you don't see any results. When if you were to check with somebody else, they will tell you that, hey, your website, it's just not at a place where it should be. So you need to have a decent website set up first, because trust me, based off of my experience from working with many clients already, the one thing that usually stops a campaign from getting traffic first or getting more organic traffic is usually because of how the website is set up. So you always need to make sure that your website is set up properly. Ideally, I would recommend you use WordPress. Avoid Wix, avoid Squarespace if you really want to use SEO as your main channel. And the reason why is because with WordPress, or if it's a code, if you have your own developers working with you, that will be fantastic as well, because you have a lot more freedom to implement things as compared to on CMS like Squarespace, Wix, and Duda. So just stick to WordPress because it's a lot more robust. And all these I'm speaking on experience, because I've personally ran so many campaigns that we brought the website from when they are being built on Wix, we are able to optimize it to get traffic, but then it reaches a pillar, and the moment we transfer their website over to a WordPress site, because of how many things we can change, how many things we can optimize it, the website just the traffic just skyrockets. Okay, so this is again my own recommendation. So first of all, you need to have a decent website set up first, and then second of all, you need to set aside, like I mentioned, a time for you to go in and implement things, or for you to learn stuff. Okay, so these are the prerequisite because you need time for you to absorb whatever things that you have learned, and then taking the time to implement things, and then also taking the time to see whether is your tactics or is the implementations that you did working or not. And because you are working with an algorithm, it takes time. So that's why this is very, very important. Okay, and you will probably hear this a lot. SEO takes time because it's not paid advertising. It's working with an algorithm, and algorithm takes time for them to analyze your website, analyze your changes before they do any type of updates, right? And because it takes time, the moment you rank on page 1, chances are you're gonna get, in a sense, free traffic if you're doing it on your own. But that kind of traffic, because it's organic, will tend to convert a little bit better than paid advertising, just because of how users are interacting with ads. Okay, but these are the prerequisites of an SEO campaign: decent website, and you need time. Okay, so what's next? So in the next, let me bring my down here. So in the next video, what I'll be going through will be still a little bit about the foundations, the fundamentals, which is your Google properties setup. Okay, I'll be explaining to you why is it important for you to set up your Google properties properly. This is and what Google properties to set up. So your Google Search Console, your Google Analytics, if you are using and Google Tag Manager if you are using them. Okay, but that will be for the next video. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this will be able to help you out. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. Just